What is up, everybody? Josh Tapp here again, and welcome back to the Lucky Titan. And today we are here with Mike Lander, and this guy, we just had a great conversation, and I am way excited for it because he is the founder of Piscari, which is really all about negotiation. And for those of you who haven't done it, negotiation is about the funnest thing you'll ever do in business. And we've been neck deep in an acquisition of this new company for quite, I don't know, 3 months now, 4 months. I've been learning a lot because it's the first big negotiation. So I'm excited to really talk through this today with Mike and really to get a feel for how he helps people in the negotiation process to actually make it not just a win-win, but like an actual successful acquisition strategy. So Mike, I'm excited to have you here today. Say what's up to everybody and then we'll hop in.
Hey, Josh, and thanks for inviting me. Fantastic. Really, really looking forward to this. And the pre-interview call was great. Just really, really interesting. So yeah, so let's get into all things negotiation, including acquiring companies, selling companies, and improving your sales capability when you sell to bigger organizations.
Love it. See, and that intrigues me to death, especially being somebody who's in it now. You know, before I was doing this, I was like, I don't know if this is something I want to do, but walk us through really quick. I was going to sell people on this, but I figure it's better to have you because you're here. But why should they be looking at acquisition over building? What do you think is the big difference there and why?
Okay, so we had a really interesting conversation, Josh, about as you grow a business. So as an entrepreneur, normally you start off with a great idea, some deep insight into a particular problem that a group of customers have got. Hopefully that's a growing group of customers that have an ongoing need, not a one-off need, ideally. So you build this business up and you get to $1 million and you're founder-led selling. So you get there and you go, this is brilliant. And then you look at your take-home pay at the end of each month and you go, geez, this is really hard work for not a lot more money. What's going on now? So then you go, okay, do I keep just growing organically? And the problem is that you end up with founder-led sales problems where it's always the founder that's selling and it's really hard to train other people to do that selling. And then you have a breakthrough moment, which is actually what I kind of had as well. Back in, when did I buy that company? Back in 2006, I think it was. And I went, I know, I'll buy something. Because if I buy something that works and I can double its size, I've already got a base to work off that's already much bigger. So I'll go and borrow some money. And so the reason that they should be looking at, your listeners should be looking at acquisitions is when you get to a credible size, what that means normally is your delivery capability is pretty good. You know what you're doing. You can deliver the services, you get great client feedback, it's repeatable. And then you're like, how do I scale this thing? And an acquisition can be an amazing way. By the way, it can be the worst thing you ever do in your entire life and it can go horribly wrong. The acquisition integration post the deal is critical. And the way you negotiate the deal on the acquisition kind of point of completion about how that transition occurs is also critical. And we talked about it's not just price. Everyone thinks negotiations about just price. And think of buying a company and say you buy it for $1 million. Think of all the variables in that deal that are not price related. About what can the founders do with their other businesses? Is that allowed? How long do the founders stay around? Who are the key people in that business? What are their roles going to be? How are you going to integrate those roles with other people you've got already? There's loads of things to think about. Who owns the IP? You don't want to find you buy the company and then they own some assets that you haven't acquired and you go, what happened there? All that stuff. So I actually built, I'm launching in the summer, I've built a workbook. So I've built a negotiation workbook because everyone says they love my templates. It'd be great if I had something to write in. So rather than writing a textbook, my first book I'm releasing it's a negotiation workbook. And you can buy the book and then write your negotiations in it. It's got 4 template sheets and it's a how-to guide as part of it because I thought there's a problem there that needs solving. And it's a structured way. Preparation, the prepared mind wins the day in negotiation. It's about preparation.
See, and I love that. And I hope people are listening to that and saying, how could I do this in my own company? And you know, you kind of teased it there, Mike, but the reality is that if you're trying to grow a company and you're stuck, 9 times out of 10, it's you. You're the problem. You're the bottleneck. You're the issue. In my case, it was I sucked at selling and I had to get better at selling. So in order to move our company forward, Josh had to keep learning how to sell and get better at it. But then every time we tried to implement a sales team, like you said, it was just so much harder because it was founder driven. I didn't know how to train salespeople.
Exactly.
I don't even do it well myself. So it's kind of this constant give and take. But if you buy another company, you can share the costs.
Yep.
A similar company, you can share the costs, you can cross sell to both businesses, and your revenues in both companies will increase without you having to be a crazy good salesman or even sell in most cases.
I mean, a key thing I think in any acquisition that you make. So I used to work, for your audience, I used to work quite a lot with private equity firms. So kind of mid-market firms that had bought decent sized companies. And we'd work with the portfolio company to help them kind of grow those businesses. And the really simple thing I learned was, well, in fact, two simple things. So one was, let's say the company you're buying, Josh. I don't know who it is. I don't know what size they are, but let's just say, a fictitious company you're buying. One of the key things when you buy it is you've got to be able to see how you can double the size of that business within 2 to 3 years of acquisition. If you can't see that, it means they've maxed out on the value that's been created in that business. So buying it, all you're adding is bulk. You're not adding the ability to scale. So they've got to be able to show you a path as a buyer as to how could you reach the next kind of like, doubling in size. And a key thing to see if they're kind of not telling the truth, because everyone, of course, tells the truth, but to see if it's credible is look back 3 years at their history. And if you see the 3-year history kind of doing this, and then you see their forecast and it does this, they're saying, oh yeah, you can double it easily because the forecast is doing this. You go, so you've not managed to do this, have you? And there's the opportunity to negotiate a deal at a lower price if you think you can do something that they can't, because you've got access to markets, sales capability, something that they haven't got. And you say, if I bolt that in, I know I can double it because I've got the capability or the access. And then you can buy businesses at better valuations.
Wow. See, and that was a killer tip right there. And I love that because with a lot of the companies we've been looking at as we've been going through this process, that's really where they've been, 20 years of just, 2 million, 1.8 million, like 1.8 million, 2.2 million, back down to 1.8 million. It's just like this little teeny increments. And you're saying, how could you possibly forecast a number of a double the revenues?
You can't.
Because you haven't been able to do it in 20 years, right?
Correct.
So the negotiation becomes
just not believable.
Better.
Exactly.
Right.
So it puts you in. So you've now got an ideal, if you're buying anything, you start with criteria. So as a buyer, I'd have 3 or 4 criteria. The ideal target looks like this. It's got these characteristics, and that makes it a really good purchase. I sold a business a number of years ago now, which was a schools business. I built a school from scratch. So I actually built a special needs school that served this kids with Asperger's syndrome. We built it up to about 45 pupils, 120 staff. It was a great business. More importantly, it was great for the kids. It's a private school. And when I sold that business, I could demonstrate to the buyer that it could double in size. We had the physical capacity to get more children in. We had a great growth story. We had a long tail of history. We had all the relationships in place. One of the key things they said to me when they bought that business, they said, Mike, how important are you to that business day to day? If we buy this and took you out the equation, would it still fly? And I said, yeah, I'm not involved in it anymore. I'm the chairman of the board. So I chair the board meetings. I have an amazing operator that runs that business for me. She's extremely capable, and she can easily double the size of that business with some extra support that you could bring as a larger buyer, because they were looking to do, I think, a buy and build. And it was going to be the kind of one of the cornerstones for the buy and build strategy. And I said, she'd be brilliant at that. And you won't need me for a day past the day that you buy it. So making yourself redundant, if you're going to sell your business, is really important, or else you won't sell.
See, and that's such a brilliant statement, because I mean, every company we've looked at, that's the problem, is they can't even get themselves out the door, and if you're if you're having to be there, I know in some of the acquisitions we've looked at, a lot of the owners are like, oh, can we stay on for another year because we're going to need that, and that red flag to me, man alive, that just means you have no operational structure in place.
Correct. No systems, no processes, no operational capability in place, no scalability, none of it.
Right.
And we know, Josh, the reality is if they could do it themselves, they would have done.
Right.
But that can be an opportunity. The other side of the coin, as we discussed before, was that can be a good opportunity. If you've got systems and processes and they've got a great market position and you think you can bolt it in and grow that capability, then great. But it's a risky strategy because typically the people in that business that haven't built systems, that haven't built processes, they may not fit going forward. And that can be a huge problem. That's why I like businesses that have got nice, sticky, recurring revenues of some kind.
Right. Love that. Well, so let me ask you this, because that kind of dovetails into it. Where would you, so let's just say, knowing that most of the people who listen to and watch the show, they're B2B service providers. So typically an agency of some sort.
Yeah.
What type of acquisitions should they be looking at?
Interesting. So I do a lot of work with marketing agencies as it happens. I'm the chairman of a marketing agency. I do a lot of work with marketing agencies in the UK and over in the States. And I think if you're looking for an acquisition target and you said, right, we're going to double in size, we've got to, let's say it's $2 million of revenue. We want to get to 5. Organically is going to take too long because we're going to grow at 15-20% per year. So we're going to buy something and then we're going to integrate it and then we're going to sell. So the first thing is, we talked about EBITDA arbitrage, which is a very fancy word for if you can buy at 5 times EBITDA, double the size of the business and make it truly more valuable, you'll sell at, say, 7 or 8 times EBITDA. So the act of acquisition and integration, if you get it right, can give you an uplift in the EBITDA multiple, which is critical when you're obviously on the sell side, when you're selling at the other side. But the kind of criteria I'd be looking for is, I'm quite old school trained in strategy. So I talk about kind of core strategic assets as a business. So let's say you're in, let's say you're in consulting, because I know the consulting market well. I used to be in consulting many, many years. And let's say you're in operational efficiency consulting. That's what you do. So all of your core capability is about efficiency improvement. So if you're looking for another business, you might go, okay, what do buyers really, really value? So when you say, what are you looking for as criteria? You've got to take your hat off as the seller, as the business, turn it around as a potential buyer and sit there and say, what would a potential buyer of my company, when it's 5 million, really want? What are they looking for? Well, they want sector focus. They want geographic focus, and they want huge depth in capability, specialism. So you go, okay, so as a buyer, so let's say this consulting company is in North America, it's doing 2 million of revenue, your business, and you're in operational efficiency, but you only cover a certain, maybe you only cover like 10 states. So you might go, well, what about if we could find an operational efficiency consultancy that was $1 million in size that covers 10 states that we don't? Then we'd have 20 states covered in operational efficiency. So in something that we really, really understand, and we'd have grown our market geographically. And then you go, what about sectors? So we're really good at operational efficiency inside manufacturing. Well, what about if we bought a company that was great at operational efficiency inside FMCG? Yeah, that would work, because now we've got 2 sectors and 20 geographic states with a real depth of expertise in operational efficiency. That's what I'd do. I'd look at it as a buyer and work out, what's the buyer looking for? They're looking for expertise in your capability. They're looking for geographic coverage, and they're looking for sector expertise. That's what I would do. Does that resonate with what you've kind of looked at?
Yeah, 100%. I love it. And I'm here to learn. So I like to hear that. And what I love about that, as you said, there's sector, geographic, and specialization. Those are kind of the 3 big things they're looking for. And I love that, because I know, especially with marketing agencies, in today's world, we're not geographically limited. Yeah. But the problem is we're also not specialized in anything half the time. And so we run into this big issue of, well, I can do everything, but master of none, right?
Correct. And that's the problem. As a buyer, I'm like, I'm not that interested.
Right.
But if you say you're an expert agency in app store optimization. So you've got very deep expertise in ASO or podcast kind of optimization. How do you get people's podcasts to rank at scale? I'd be like, okay. If we're a big network agency in the States and we're the WPP or someone, you'd go, okay, we could bolt that in. That'd be a great capability for our clients. Perfect.
Yeah, I love that. See, and we've run into that problem even in our own company, saying, how do we get so specialized? We're not looking for an acquisition as far as being acquired with this company, but
yeah,
how do you differentiate yourself in a way, and the companies that we're looking at, you see that a lot of times with marketing agencies, like, oh, we have 5 major sectors and they're only at $1 million in sales. And that to me just says, how? You can't be, you haven't mastered it yet. I mean, so
it's impossible. Exactly right.
Right. Yeah. And I love that. I'm learning a lot here. I'm taking a lot of notes too. So
that's good, Josh. I love these conversations because it's not, there's a theme, but there's no structure. So the conversation goes where it kind of like takes itself.
Right. It's the beauty of podcasting. And that's why people love the show, because it's like a phone call between me and you, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
So let me ask you this though, Mike. I mean, especially where, you've done so many acquisitions with your personal acquisitions. Tell us a little bit about the story of how those came to be and why you decided to acquire what you did.
Sure. So obviously there's quite a lot of confidential information. So, and I am definitely under NDA on all the deals that I did, in fact, regarding valuations, etc. But let me tell you the story of what happened.
Yeah.
So the first one was a consulting company that I bought. And I'd realized I was a freelance consultant. I was earning good day rates. It was going really well. I was an expert in kind of project management, running big change programs for clients. And as it happened, the company I was working for as a freelancer was looking to exit. And I realized that actually, if I could raise some money in the capital markets as debt, I had a small amount of equity I could put in. Maybe I could do a deal. And this is in 2006. In the UK, and I think also probably in the US, a lot of the financial institutions were looking to deploy capital into entrepreneurs, because they realized, all right, it's a bit of a portfolio effect, but if you get enough of them to win, then you back them on the first round, and then they're going to borrow more, and then they're probably going to want equity investments, and then one day they're going to float. So obviously it's a pyramid of diminishing numbers, but they were like, this is great. So they were backing entrepreneurs. And so I found a bank in the UK that would back me to buy this company that I'd found, because we'd agreed a price, a headline price, and outline terms. But I needed the money. So they're like, we could do a deal, Mike, but you've no money. So how are you going to solve that problem? And I said, if I can solve that problem, would you sell me the company? And they said, yeah, based upon certain conditions, maybe. And I raised the money. I went off and I raised debt from the banks. I put my own equity in, and I did a deal with this company to buy their business. And a couple of things that were a bit unusual. I'd worked as a freelancer for this business. So there were like 50 of us that were all freelancers in this business. And then I bought it. So the next day I turned up and they were like, what do you mean you've bought it? And I'm like, well, I own the business now. And they were like, but you can't have done. And I'm like, yeah, no, I have. And they all went, well, why didn't we do that? And I'm like, I don't know, but I did. And that in itself is, just people that have self-limiting beliefs. And those self-limiting beliefs are reconfirmed by their friends. So I can't tell you how many of my friends said, before I did the deal, are you mad? What are you doing? You're putting your savings at risk. Are you crazy? It'll never work. You've not done this before. It's too good a deal. There's something wrong with this deal. All sorts of things. And then I bought it and they went, oh, okay, maybe you weren't so mad. So A, get rid of the self-limiting beliefs. B, talk to your friends, absolutely. Make sure, get their counsel, but don't just go with the tribe. Because a lot of people haven't been on that journey. So the advice they're going to give you is from their own perspective. That's not wrong. It's just they haven't done it. The guy you spoke to, I've forgotten his name, who's done hundreds of deals, I'd listen to him.
Right.
I'd definitely listen to him.
See, and what I love about what you're saying too is listen to your friends, but listen to the right friends. And you
Yeah,
get yourself around the friends that are going to give you an educated opinion. And everybody knows this who listens to the show, but that's why I do the show. It really is for me. So I can ask my genuine questions and
yeah,
get genuine feedback from people like Mike, who has great experience in this. So yeah, improve your circle. That's really what it comes down to.
exactly. And then if you look at kind of like negotiating a deal, so we talked a lot about kind of negotiation when you're buying companies. So this is something that I've developed more recently in the last kind of 2 or 3 years, but I was taught it. I did a brilliant course at Harvard in the States on negotiation skills from an organization called PON. So they have this program on negotiation, which is between the business faculty and the law faculty. So amazing, amazing people. If your audience haven't read it, they should read a book called Getting to Yes by William Ury. And it's a seminal piece of work, 2 or 3 hour read, brilliant piece of work that was all about basically how do you construct better deals. But one thing that I've constructed for my clients now is negotiation success, over half of it is in the preparation. Some people say, no, I'm just like a brilliant negotiator. I'm brilliant on my feet. And I'm like, maybe you are. Maybe you are brilliant on your feet. That's great. And one of my old clients was brilliant on his feet, like really amazingly capable negotiator on his feet, but didn't like doing the preparation. But I teamed up with him and I did the prep work and he fronted it. And that was a very powerful combination, because when you sit down and write the deal structure through, so you start with something simple. So what are the goals here? What are the goals? What are the constraints of doing this deal? What are the criteria by which we're both going to judge what a good deal looks like? So you write that down. So in fact, I'm going to reference my own piece of work because I've got a little circle that I use. So context and goals, then the kind of the process and the timescales. So a really important thing is, what's the process for doing this deal, negotiating this deal, and how long is it going to take? So you write that down. And then you sit down and you work out, so what does the kind of like what's often called the most desirable outcome and the least acceptable outcome. It's an old negotiating framework, MDO, LAO. So you get a piece of paper and you write down all the negotiating variables. So let's say it's a sales deal that we're talking about here. So you've got price, sure. And on price, you've got, well, what's the best outcome I'm looking for? What's the worst outcome I'll accept? And then in the middle, you say, where are we? And so as you're negotiating, you put down the number. But then you've got payment terms. And then you've got IP rights. And then you've got contract duration. And then you've got notice period. So I've got 5 or 6 variables already before we start. So you write all the variables down. And then for each one, you write down, what's my most desirable outcome? What's my least acceptable outcome? Where are we? And then as the negotiation unfolds, so now you're at stage 4. So you've done your goals, you've done your process, you've done your prep. Now we're sitting here, Josh, and now I'm in the chair, I'm negotiating with you. 2 things will happen. I feel massively confident. I've prepared. The act of preparation makes the mind much more confident. You feel more confident. You feel less anxiety. Second thing that's going to happen is you're going to start talking about the price one. So I say, okay, let's say it's a 20K a month retainer. So this is a marketing agency selling a service into a brand. It's a $20,000 a month retainer. And you go, so I'm the seller, you're the buyer. And you go, I'm not paying 20,000. Well, it's only worth 15. So I'll say, 15. Okay. So I'd say, right. So in the scope that we've agreed, which part of the scope do you want to take out? And you'd go, well, that's ludicrous. None of it. And I'd go, so you just want me to keep reducing the price, do you? Until you think you've gone far enough. But the same scope and the same deliverables and the same outcomes. And when you say that to someone who's buying, it's not a shaming thing, but it's a recognition that that's not a fair deal. So then you get back into, okay, what's the right scope for that price? And then as that price changes, I might go, okay, so it's not 20K, maybe it's 19. But if it's 19K, then I need a 3-year contract. And you're like, no, it was a 1-year contract. I'm like, yeah, but you've just changed the price. So the scope's the same, the price has gone down, so the term's gone up. They're like, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, you can't take it all. If you're going to take something off the table, I want to take something back. And that's why you write down those variables when you're negotiating. And that's why you write down what's my most desirable outcome, my least acceptable outcome. And you move like you would if you're a DJ or if you're a producer in a mixing studio. You'd move the sliders around until you get the deal structure that you want.
Love that. Well, and I hope everybody's been paying attention, hopefully taking notes on this, because that negotiation tactic is absolute gold. I know the preparation is absolutely important. I'm not a prepared person. I am a very off the cuff person, but with this, because it was my first time, I was like, I've got to come at this. Yeah. I was trained on having 6 potential offers that I could give them. And
okay.
that would all work. They'd be kind of mutually beneficial. And, that has held true for me, is the confidence level when they're like, well, we want this. Like, okay, cool. If you want that, I just have to do this. And it makes it so much easier of a dance, because you're not constantly having to go back and look at it and say, well, what would work and everything. You're prepared. You're prepared for it.
You're prepared. Exactly right. I mean, Blair Enns, who a lot in the States know in the marketing world, Blair's, I think, a very, very talented guy. And he talks about, having pricing options. So when you're talking to clients, the brain's trained to look at different options and then they choose. So if you only give a client one option, so it's this service, it looks like this, it's this price. Well, don't be surprised when they go off to a competitor and start to get them to provide a benchmark and some alternatives. If you give them 3 different options about the kind of service, the way it's delivered, the scope, the scale, the timescales, the outputs, again, they'll discuss it more with you than they will with someone else, because you've presented options to them that they can start to shape with you. It's all about, we used to call it in consulting, you want to get the fingerprints of your client all over your proposal. So then when you give it back to them, they go, I recognize this. This is exactly what we agreed. And that's your job when you're negotiating a deal. Certainly you're selling agency services, you've got to get the client's fingerprints all over the deal structure, so that then they effectively sell it internally.
That's brilliant. I love that. Well, and everybody, if you've been getting some real value from this and saying, hey, I need help with negotiations, which I'm just going to say it, we all do. If you're even been stuck anywhere from $300,000 to $1 million, Mike's your guy. He's the type of guy who's going to help you either increase your negotiation capacity with your sales team to close more deals, acquire other companies, or maybe get acquired and do something different, right? That's always an option for other people as well. Yeah. So make sure you go check it out. So it's piscari.com, which is piscari.com. On top of that, we will have all of the links around the show notes, or wherever you're watching this, it will be around here. But Mike, I want to wrap this up with one little bow. So if you could give one final parting piece of guidance to our audience, what would that be?
It would be about having structured preparation. Don't walk into a negotiation in the 11th hour. Great example. So I'm the client, you're the supplier, you're an agency. I write you an email. Hi, Josh, it's Mike here. Yeah, we'd like to talk about your contract, your existing contract, and the extra work we're going to put your way. Could you be available, please, tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. For a call? That's it. If you say yes, that's a really, really, really bad mistake. Because I've prepared on my side. You've got no time to prepare on your side. And what you do is you say, I'd love to talk to you. Can't do it tomorrow morning. I need time to prepare. Tell me what's on your mind. Tell me who's going to be on the call. And tell me what your expectations are. And we'll have it on Friday morning. And if they won't agree to it, it's a game. Preparation. That's the key.